Ladies and gentlemen, if my microphone is up, let me just keep you posted here. So the beauty of us coming together again is a wonderful aspect, of course, of emerging out of this pandemic. But of course, the pandemic has also brought with it its own set of challenges, namely digitalization. And one of those challenges we're facing right now, because we're supposed to have the Executive Vice President of the European Commission, Frans Timmermans, joining us live from Glasgow, live from COP26. But I'm sure you've all experienced throughout the past couple of years when you were on Zoom, something sometimes doesn't go as planned. I think that's part of the allure, part of the charm. This is why I suggest, until we have the Executive Vice President of the European Commission, we will just start with the fellow panelists here who will join me up on stage, because subsequent and following the remarks of Timmermans, we were going to have a great discussion here. So in that order, let me just welcome once again here up on stage the Mayor of Leipzig, Burkhard Jung. Please give him a hand. Our host, so to speak, wonderful to have you back. Of course, just fresh off the plane. Please have a seat, Mayor. We're delighted that he could join us on time. Is, of course, the Eurocities president. He's also the mayor of Fiorentina. Dario Nardella, ladies and gentlemen, is here. Glad that you could make it on time. Come, just flank me over here. Also with us, we heard, it's going to get tricky now because we had the mayor of Tampere praising her city as the most popular town in Finland. Now it's my great pleasure to welcome the mayor of Turku, Minna Arvis here, ladies and gentlemen. She might have a thing or two to say about that. And last but certainly not least, but that is something that the fellow technical staff, great to have you with us. Yes, please by all means, will have to tell me. We're also supposed to be joined by the mayor of Warsaw, Rafael Chavkovsky. Is he online? Let me see. Can I give a thumbs up, thumbs down, so we know if he's with us? While they're working on it, let's just until we get the people here up on stage, Dario Nardella, let me talk to you here for a second, because this is, of course, and hopefully we will hear from Frans Timmermans, who will be joining us live from COP26 Glasgow, climate change. It is one of the most pressing, urgent issues. We've already heard it in the initial remarks here in the first panel. Tell us about. Let me talk to you first as the mayor, not as the president of Eurocities, but the mayor of Florence. How is Florence, how is Fiorentina leading the way here? What is Florence doing when it comes to climate change?
Thank you very much. First of all, let me thank all of you, and especially my friend, my colleague, Burkhard Jung, to organize this great event for first time in presence with all of you. So thank you, Burkhard, for your passion, for your great organization in this beautiful city, the Pact city. So I love music, and for me, this city is like Maracanã for soccer.
The Maracanã of classical music. Yes,
exactly. And you mentioned Fiorentina. Thank you, because Fiorentina is our soccer team. So Firenze and Fiorentina, quindi, and I am a great supporter of my team. But about this General Assembly, I think that we are in the perfect moment discussing crucial challenges that we are facing. In the same days, we are seeing what's happening in Glasgow for COP26, and I think there is a virtual bridge between Leipzig and Glasgow, because our goal is how to transform our cities, how to refurbish and make a real and concrete urban regeneration in a real sustainable way, how to build a compact and sustainable community and society. And I think now we need more than ever mayors and cities' support, because nothing is possible without us. I'm sorry, but it's the reality. All global challenges you have, climate change, social inclusion, immigrations, all these big, huge challenges are possible if we mayors are involved from the beginning of all processes. That's because Eurocities is a fundamental player for European Union, for our continent, in order to transform these theoric goals in concrete actions. And that's because I think this panel and these 2-3 days are crucial to make something new, and also to push our national governments and our European institutions to make something more than the past, with more courage, more efficiency and vision. And I think our experiences are very useful to make a common model, to offer, to propose to the European institutions. In Florence, for example, we are investing a lot on public transport. I'm coming from Vienna, another city which is part of our executive committee, and we know how important is the investment of these fields. And many other, so we are seeing our Vice President, Frans Timmermans, here, and so we know how important is the investment on public transport and environmental infrastructures, but also social policy, because we used to consider sustainability as an environmental value, but it's not only an environmental concept, it's also a social concept. So social sustainability is important, like environment sustainability. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Something that we will, of course, dive much deeper. But first, in order not to waste this opportunity, once the line is intact, you shouldn't tinker and try your luck. So, if I understand, the Executive Vice President of the EC, Frans Timmermans, he's with us, joining us live from Glasgow. Executive Vice President, you can hear as well, right?
Yes, I can. Yeah.
Wonderful. So with that, I think we're gonna very much appreciate some opening remarks, I believe, which we will hear from you now. Please, you have the floor.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me, and I'm sorry we had a bit of a problem establishing the link, but I think you are speaking at a crucial time today, because we're in the middle of this big event in Glasgow. Climate action is on everybody's mind right now, and I will be heading there in a few days, so we can really try and make a success of the final stages of the negotiations. We're still a long way from where we need to be. Let's be very honest about that. The recent report of the International Climate Panel, but more importantly, the reality all of you in your cities face, dictates that we should act faster than we're doing. We should be doing more, and we should be doing it earlier. So it's not just about setting long-term goals, it's about starting to implement policies straight away. In Europe, with the Green Deal, we're clearly paving the way. We see unprecedented alignment with the objectives of the European Green Deal by businesses, by the financial community, by investors. They drive the real economy, and they want to drive the economy in the right direction. And you can also see it, for instance, by the success of our green bonds. They've been oversigned many, many times, because everybody knows this is where society needs to go. And cities are really leading this charge. As much as I admire what cities are doing, what you're all doing, we don't have room for complacency because we need to do much more. We've set our ambitions into law, the European climate law, which means that we will have to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions with at least 55% by 2030 and reach climate neutrality by 2050. Now, we all know that only action at local level is going to get us there. It's an absolutely indispensable part of implementing the European Green Deal. Cities and towns represent 75% of our population and account for most of our greenhouse gas emissions, as well as most of our jobs. And cities are the centers of innovation, of inspiration, and action related to climate and energy. Cities is where minds meet, different opinions clash, where through the clash of opinions and ideas, new inventions come to the fore. We will need new inventions if we are to use all of human ingenuity to face this most pressing of challenges. So the proposals in our Fit for 55 package aim to profoundly transform our economies and societies to confront the climate crisis head on. I think the transformation we will be going through, the only comparable transformation is the first industrial revolution. I'm absolutely convinced of that. And that changed the world completely. And I believe this transformation will also change our world completely. We need to harness the opportunities this transformation provides, and at the same time ensure a just transition that will leave no one behind. Just what Dario was saying just a minute ago, that this is the biggest threat we see to this transformation is that an opposition would be created between social sustainability and environmental sustainability. Some who oppose the transition to a climate neutral society because they represent vested interest or because for ideological reasons, they try to create the situation where they say we can't do this because poor people can't afford to do that. My starting position is exactly opposite to that. We have to do it because poor people can't afford us not to do it. They will be the prime victims of the climate crisis if we don't limit the rise of the temperature. They have nowhere else to go. They depend on where they are, on what they have, on the jobs they have now and the future jobs we need to create with the new economy. So fairness has to be our guiding principle in everything we do with member states, with regions, with cities, and with all sectors of our economy. Everybody needs to contribute to that. The proposal we've come up with encompass measures to ensure fairness towards citizens and consumers, for example, with a social climate fund, and between the EU and our international partners. You know, it has to be seen as just within societies, but also between societies in the EU, between member states, but also on a global scale between the richer parts of the globe and the poorer parts. This is very much at the heart of our discussions in Glasgow right now. So in our long-term budget for the next 7 years, we will provide support for this transformation. 30% of programs under the €2 trillion multi-annual financial Next Generation EU are dedicated to supporting climate action. 37% of the 723.8 billion Recovery and Resilience Facility, which will finance member states' national recovery programs under Next Generation EU, is allocated to climate action. And we should never make the mistake of putting that money in an economy that doesn't have any future. We would abandon the future of our children and grandchildren if we were not to invest in the new economy, an economy that is resilient and that is future-oriented, not in the past economy. So your engagement, your actions, your commitment are crucial to deliver on the energy transition and decarbonize our society to help Europe become the first climate-neutral continent. So we will support you for the Fit for 55 package, for example, in reducing pollution, making zero-emission transport more accessible through CO2 standards for cars and vans, for example, extension of carbon pricing to road transport, alternative fuels infrastructure regulation, new emissions trading system, which will put a price on emissions from the fuels used in building and road transport sectors. But we have to do it in such a way that we can avoid energy poverty to increase. So some of the revenues from that system need to be clawed back to our citizens to avoid that and to prove that this is a transformation where we will leave no one behind. I very much welcome the political support from the New Mayors Alliance to the European Green Deal and their commitment to implement the Green Deal in cities. This ties in well with the efforts of the 10,000 mayors who, through the EU Covenant of Mayors, already committed to take their cities forward on the path of climate neutrality and climate resilience. So, of course, cities are not the only crucial partner in reducing emissions, but cities are particularly vulnerable to the impacts of climate change. We can see that already now. And they can therefore also help us achieve climate resilience by implementing our adaptation strategy on the ground. I mean, you can also get quick results. We've seen in the pandemic, cities greening themselves more rapidly now, create enthusiasm with their citizens. And I think this enthusiasm is what we need, so that everybody has a feeling they can all contribute to this transformation. We've just launched 5 European missions with the aim to solve some of the greatest challenges we face. I invite you to join the mission on 100 climate neutral and smart cities by 2030, which will put cities and citizens in the driver's seat, and the mission on adaptation, obviously, which is of great importance to you. It will help prepare for unavoidable climate impacts and accelerate Europe's transformation into a climate resilient continent. Finally, we need to make climate action a shared endeavor between all levels, and not least city governments, every individual citizen, civil society, and other local actors. Cities are best placed to motivate local action and to engage their citizens, businesses, and local stakeholders in this transition. As part of the Green Deal, we launched a European Climate Pact to make sure that every European citizen can help build a greener Europe and achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. I know that many cities across Europe work hand in hand with their communities. Stockholm, Grenoble, Munich, Leuven, not far from where I live, and others shared their stories on climate local pacts during the Covenant of Mayors ceremony on the 7th of October. The city of Leuven was actually awarded EU Capital Innovation in 2020 for their open governance model to drive the transition. And I come there very often, and you see citizens really support on an individual level what the city government is doing. So the role cannot be overstated of city governments for the Pact. Engage with local stakeholders, providers, and citizens, and commit to a clear and concrete climate-related pledge could both demonstrate the climate commitment and be the basis of inspiration for other cities in Europe and worldwide to take similar action. Another option of getting active in the Climate Pact is to become a Climate Pact ambassador. Some mayors have already joined us. For example, the Vice Mayor of Stockholm, Ms. Katarina Loer, and the Mayor of Warsaw, my friend Rafael Chavkovsky. I invite all of you to join the European Climate Pact, to be part of the pan-European green movement, engaging all citizens in this fundamental transition. Now, we're all looking at COP26 right now. And while we are at an important moment to accelerate climate action, beyond this conference, you have to play a crucial role in translating these commitments into action on the ground, action people can actually be part of. Simple steps leading to complicated solutions to complicated problems. But these simple steps are essential. And engaging with people is something that we all need to do to make sure that we don't create the basis for climate desperation or climate resignation, which we cannot afford to have in our society. So I continue to count on your support, and I want to thank you for everything you have done so far.
Thank you, dear Frans, dear Executive Vice President. Thank you for joining us from Brussels, and we truly appreciated your participation today and your words. And the ongoing dialogue we have with you is of very high importance for us. And here in Leipzig, we are zooming in on the power of our cities to transform society, as you told us. We need that power more than ever, and we need more of it to achieve the just and green transformation of our cities. We know we are facing the challenge of our lifetime. Firstly, we need our political power. We need bold decisions on energy efficiency, sustainable mobility, buildings, and on how we support vulnerable groups. I think, dear friends, we all recognize the special role and responsibility of city leaders in the green and just transition. So, dear colleagues, let's be clear about our ambitions and join the growing number of cities which are committing to climate neutrality by 2030 and 2040. It's really necessary that we lead the path for Europe. And we can, I think, we have to anticipate these goals. To match our commitments, we need a seat at the table where the Green Deal policies are shaped. And when we join up our powers across levels of government, we have a chance of succeeding. Secondly, we need financial power. 37% of European Union's recovery and resilience funding is targeted towards green investments, as you know. But many cities were not involved in the design of the national recovery plans and still are not. This is a problem. And there is a real risk of missing out on the knowledge and expertise available in cities to ensure this funding boosts the urban transformation we need. Also, the European Union mission for 100 climate-neutral cities will be invaluable. And we should not underestimate the importance of supporting front-runner cities. They will identify new financing and governance models that all of us and Europe needs for the sustainable transition. And thirdly, we need people power. As city leaders, we work with citizens every day to better understand challenges and shape local solutions. We are the level of government closest to people, and we can do things the national government cannot. We can lead and bring people together around common goals. And we can build coalitions for change at local level. We can have a leadership of place with responsibilities for the areas surrounding our cities as well. This is essential to ensure both the buy-in we need from people and to tap into the innovation potential for local change. So, dear friends, you can be sure that mayors all over Europe are committed to using our powers to transform society and deliver a just European Green Deal locally. The results from a survey we did recently show that a majority of cities, as Florence, for example, have revised upwards their climate targets for 2030 and 2050 following the start of a European Green Deal and adoption of the European Climate Law. European Union actions matter to cities, and the success of initiatives like the Green Deal depend on cities' ability to implement them. Our Mayors Alliance for European Green Deal brings together around 50 committed mayors with a powerful message that a green and just transition is possible with mayors and cities on board. Our pathways will be different, but the goal is the same for us and for Europe, a sustainable transition. We have to enhance this pact between European institutions and mayors. And there is a clear message to everyone in Brussels and in Glasgow involved in the COP26 negotiations. Let's work together, dear colleagues, to make the transformation a reality. Let's meet regularly. I suggest to organize a Green Deal City Summit each year to fulfill our goals and commitment towards climate neutrality. European mayors and European Commission together. So thank you again, dear Executive Vice President, dear Frans. And I have to conclude a question to you. We know we must work in close partnership between all levels of government to meet the goals for 2030 and 2050. What are the current barriers to this collaboration, and how we can we do more together to overcome those? Thank you again.
Well, thank you for your question. You know, Dario, I have to say, there are not that many barriers, but we're not using the full potential of our cooperation yet. As you might know, we are very strict with the member states in the recovery and resilience plans, where we want them to show to us that they have a full involvement of all stakeholders, including cities, in the recovery plans. But that's not enough. I want us to lower the threshold. I want you to continue to highlight your plans and actions and to coordinate as much as possible with other mayors. And then I will be on your sides. You will always find an open door in my office to discuss these plans. I say this for very selfish reasons, because it's in the cities that we can demonstrate in the short run that successes can be achieved. You are decarbonizing your public transport at lightning speed, no pun intended. You are also changing the way you treat waste very quickly. You're greening your cities. You're building bike lanes. You're looking at different ways of organizing the city's economy. And I want to highlight these things and support them also financially where I can, because these are the results that will create enthusiasm across societies for this transition. Because some people think that this transition only leads to loss, only leads to cost. They'd rather stay where they are. Well, in our cities, we can showcase that transformation can happen quite quickly, and with results already very soon coming about. More safety, much better air quality, lower temperatures because of the greening, and every individual citizen can be part of that. So again, my offer is on the table. We will continue this dialogue. My door is always open. If you need me to support you or to work together with you, I will be on your side. And let's make this a success so that we can convince wider society that what cities are doing is an example of how we can transform our society and create a sustainable society for our children and grandchildren. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, dear friends, to joining us. Thank you for your words. And so, colleagues, now we know that we have to act today, not tomorrow. And our role is really crucial. And these days are very, very important to make something for our community and for the future of Europe. So thank you to all of you. Let's go.
Yeah, please have your seats again. Apologies, sometimes you have to improvise what was supposed to start. But thank you so much, Arve, for understanding these things can happen. Please take your seat, right? Come join me, everyone. And pick up right from where Frans Timmermans left off. Burkhard-Jung, we heard quite a bit about the new Leipzig Charter, and I think the mandate that Frans Timmermans has bestowed upon us, the EU and cities working closely together. First of all, for those who might not be familiar, what is the new Leipzig Charter and how can it contribute to this newfound collaboration?
First, I have to remember the first Leipzig Charter. The core message from 2007 was, I have to read it, to promote integrated and sustainable urban development, 2007. It was signed in this room.
Wow, 14 years ago.
14 years ago. And I think it's just as valid today. New Leipzig Charter provides a policy framework to envision and realize European and global agreements at the urban scale. It highlights that cities need and want to establish integrated and sustainable urban development strategies and ensure the implementation for the city as a whole, from its functional areas to its neighborhoods. It's an integrated model to develop your city with the citizens, with the administration, with the different branches, from NGOs to companies. You have to involve everybody everywhere to integrate and develop. A place-based, multi-level and participatory approach, absolutely necessary for a successful development of our city. So, public participation is central. Integrated approach relies on simultaneous and fair consideration of all concerns and interests relevant to urban development. Maybe in short.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that gives us a better understanding of what the new Leipzig Charter is and what it was really in 2007 and how it has evolved. You were ahead of your time in many ways, Mayor Arve. We heard that EU and the cities must work closely together to reach the goals of climate neutrality. When I did some research about Turku, you know, one term always came up in association, carbon neutral Turku, and living a 1.5 degree urban life. What's that about?
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for all your comments here. I was really happy to hear, Dario, for your speech for Mr. Timmermans. I totally agree in many senses, and it's so good to be here with like-minded colleagues and passionate colleagues. So, today it's good to be here. But yeah, I think there is 3 notes for this one. But first of all, people want to have rapid, but still very fair and inclusive transition. People are waiting us to act, and cities are actually acting, and we are at the heart of this change, as been heard here for many times. And in Turku, we have this very ambitious goal to be carbon neutral by 2029. And actually climate positive after that. And the year 2029, it's not only for teasing Tampere, but it's that Turku will be 800 years old at that year. So we are 1 year ahead. But
I love that popularity
but now
contest.
trying to come back down to this issue. So it's not only about the climate actions and being the climate positive area. It's only moving ahead towards the circular economy, taking into consideration the biodiversity, and we have to be taking those all together. And that's what we are doing for saving our future for the generations to come. But we as city leaders, we are directly accountable to our citizens. And that means that the justification of the ambition sustainability policies comes from the improvements that people see in their everyday lives. We need to make sure that the benefits are experienced by everyone. And the transition needs to boost innovations, job opportunities and investments. And people need to feel the better air quality. They have to have easier mobility, enjoy greeneries, beautiful and safe cities. And that's where we got our legacy to work and act. And we are well on track. We have already decreased our emissions by 50% from the 1990 level. And we were selected as a best, or awarded as a best mid-sized climate city last year by the European Commission, and we were very, very proud of that, because that was the hard work we have been doing. And the third point, my last point, that we have to also not only to be accountable for the citizens, but we have to empower the citizens and show that the sustainable life can bring well-being, make our lives easier and bring new economic activity. So it's not only about thinking about 1.5 degree as something to tears. Of course, we have to be careful and we have to take the just transition. But it's also very good things. There is a positive way we can actually bring all this together, and we really need everyone on board to reach the climate targets. It's not only about cities, it's about our citizens, it's about the companies, businesses, other actors in the area, and working together. That's where we can succeed, and I hope this message brings us to the COP and the Glasgow as well.
And Turco, of course, under your leadership, is certainly leading the way. Before we go to Warsaw, Mayor Jung, I know you wanted to jump in with one quick intervention here.
It's fantastic what you say, but I want to add one point, because for me it's a very important point. In all efforts to achieve a sustainable energy transition by substituting fossil fuels such as coal and gas, and we must not lose sight of the social dimension. This is especially true against the background of rising energy prices and rising inflation in the euro area, because the fear and the consequences of social imbalance are felt most directly in the major European cities. So I want to add this point. We have to be very, very sensible about this relation between climate change and social implementation of this question.
Most definitely, and that's something I'm sure that also the mayor of Warsaw, Rafael Chavkovsky, is more than aware of. He's joining us live now from Warsaw. Mayor, great to have you with us, if only virtually. Wonderful to have you with us. Now, I know, also talking to my Polish friends, that you've been doing quite a bit. You're leading the charge of making Warsaw a more livable city, a greener city. That's for certain. Talk to us about the way that you have, the path that you have embarked on, and about your way and ambition to work together with citizens, bringing them on board, as Mayor Arve has also pointed out.
Well, good morning. Good morning, Burkhard. Buongiorno. Buongiorno, Dario. Anche io sono un tifoso di Fiorentina.
Wow.
It is very sad that I cannot be with you, but it is a pleasure that I can actually address you on these incredibly important issues. I mean, guys, you know, this is a chance of a lifetime. Either we get our act together or it's going to be too late. And basically, embarking on green transition means that we have to think differently about urban development, and that we have to change our philosophy completely. And of course, in every crisis, there is a chance. There is a chance of thinking differently about how we want to develop our cities. And in times where we're getting out of the crisis of COVID, in times where we need to introduce a recovery of the economy and lead the charge, that offers a great opportunity, but of course, a great challenge. And that is what I want to address right now. What is the challenge? I mean, the challenge is twofold, I will submit to you. I mean, one is awareness, and second is affordability. And you've talked about it a bit. I mean, what about awareness? Yes, the young people understand the challenge that is before us. When we talk to the people of our generation and older, they're getting to know that either we get our act together and it's going to be too late. But when it comes to take the real decisions, when it comes to actually asking yourself a question, how can I contribute? That's where problems begin. Let me give you an example of public transportation. You know, we are investing in Warsaw in public transportation, metro, buses, tram lines, and so on. We had the biggest tender in Europe for zero emission buses. We are really doing a lot in order to prioritize it. 50% of inhabitants of Warsaw, which is a huge city and quite spread out, use public transportation. But when I talk to my friends, my age, 40, 50, you know, they're really loving their cars. The car, especially in post-communist society, is in a sense a symbol of status. And on top of that, in times of COVID, people feel safer in their cars than in public transportation. And now this is a challenge, because of course everyone says, yes, I want to contribute, I know the challenge, but when you ask yourself a question, can I leave my car at home? That's where problems begin. And that's why we need to work with the citizens. That's what we do. We have awareness campaigns. We're asking celebrities, NGOs to help us talk to the people and give the right example. When we talk about energy efficiency, we've decided to do a citizens panel where we invited citizens from all over Warsaw, and we actually committed ourselves that whatever recommendations they're going to put forward, we're going to treat them as obligatory. And that's what we do when it comes to energy efficiency. But it's tough. It is tough because at the end of the day, people quite often choose their comfort, choose the way of life that they're used to, instead of making a dire and an ambitious commitment in fighting climate change. That's why we need to work with the citizens. That's why we need to engage them. That's why we need to conduct all of those awareness campaigns. And that's why we, the inhabitants of the cities, but also the leaders of the cities, are at the forefront of change. And that's why we need the European Commission, we need the European institutions to help us out with it. France was telling us that 75% of EU live in cities, suburbs, towns. It is true. And that's why we need to be involved more in decision making. We need to be more involved in how the money is being spent. And that's what we are doing. That's what we are fighting. Me in the Committee of the Regions, but also in the Eurocities, along with Dario and our friends, are putting it as one of the most important ambitions that we have. Include us, allow us to access funds directly, because we know how to use them and we know how to spend them well, because we are actually listening to the citizens. And finally, the last point I want to make, and Burkhard touched upon it, it's a question of energy poverty and affordability. Because, for example, in Warsaw, we're getting rid of the coal-powered furnaces, okay? We were able, in the past 3 years, to eliminate 60% of all the coal-powered furnaces in the buildings that are owned by the city. But when we do it with the citizens, we are actually telling them you can get a subsidy, 100%, to change into a heat pump or into a renewables. Unfortunately, the program is not a huge success, because with the rising costs of energy, even if you fund that transformation, people are not that keen on actually doing it because they're afraid of the prices. And that's where the European Commission, that's where the European institutions can come in and help us deal with the question of energy poverty, and help us in actually eliminating some of those changes that we want to eliminate, because we do not want the green transformation to actually deepen the rifts within our society. We want these rifts and these changes to be actually tackled as well.
Right.
So it's our time to get the act together, and the only way forward is to include the citizens. And if you want to really do that, especially when you have irresponsible governments, to put it mildly, you need to include the mayors, you need to include the local and regional governments, because not only we know how to do it, but we're really committed and ambitious.
Thank you, Mayor Chavkovsky, for your very passionate plea, passionate remarks. And I think it's already clear that some key messages are emerging from this debate alone. One that you have pointed out, engage citizens directly in the green transition at the local level. After all, it is you mayors who are directly in touch with them. The other is, of course, that the transition, Mayor Nardella, you pointed out, the transition to a climate neutral society will be lost or won in Europe's cities. It'll be, at the end of the day, it is the cities that will be the decisive factors, you know, when it comes to reducing CO2 emissions. And you all here on stage, and of course the mayor in Warsaw, you're all leading by example. There is sometimes talk about the trade-off between green and just, about green and economy. How do you reconcile those? At the end of the day, I think no one here in this room, or if we go outside you on the street and tell the people, do you want to reduce CO2 emissions? Do you want a more green environment? Do you want to fight climate change? Very few people, aside from those few nutcases who deny climate change, would be in agreement. But at the end of the day, there are economic considerations, no?
Yes, of course. So I completely agree with my friends, and especially last words from Rafael from Warsaw about the fact that we can find in all crises an opportunity. And we must consider this COVID-19 crisis as an opportunity to change in a profound way our cities. But the points that Rafael underlined about the connection, and also Burkhard, about the connection between social sustainability and environmental sustainability is the point. Because we have to if we tell to European Union and to European Union institutions, you must involve mayors, we must be aware about the same relations with our citizens. So we have to involve our citizens, each person of our community, in order to consider the climate change transition, the climate change fighting, the energy and green transition, not only a city challenge, but also a personal target, a personal vision. And we need the support from European Union about the energy poverty problems. Because now our cities starting to consider too expensive this transition. This is the big risk that we are facing now. And we have both to talk with our citizens, investing on young generations. So how we can give a big opportunity to our community, starting from young generation from our cities. Young generations are our first allied in this battle. And secondly, we must involve European institutions in order to give us solutions on energy poverty, with a big investments on alternative energy funds, solar and not only. And that's because we have to use in a fast way, an efficient way, all funds coming from Next Generation EU. Only if we have efficient infrastructures to give energy to our cities, we can find a solution about the energy poverty. And I believe that we are in the center of these relations. Local community, bottom-up process, and European institutions. And we have to invest on young generations because they are aware about our future, and they want to support our community and we mayors.
Right, certainly something that has been pointed out numerous times. A point that the mayor of Münster, of course, has also been very passionate about prior to your arrival, to bring on the young people. We're almost on the final stretches already of this particular panel, but Mayor Arve, let me ask you, all cities here in this room are very different in their shape, size, in their conformity, in their challenges. But what are some of the best practices of your city, of your climate actions that I think are universally applicable here to your colleagues? So, it's not about giving advice, but rather what recommendations would you share?
Yeah, that's a very good question, because I think the best way is to just share and try to also learn from each other. And I have been learning a lot from my colleagues and our cities in the Eurocities network and so on. Maybe some points that we have been lucky, first of all, with timetables. We started our energy transformation already like 10 years ago, and now our energy system is totally based on renewables, and that has been now very, very successful thing. But maybe at that time we were not so sure, because we were then having the battle how to do that. But now we managed to do that. Then we are investing a lot to public transport and sustainable transport mobility, as we were heard that here are many doing. Colleague from Rafael from Warsaw, they are investing a lot to the public transport. That's one way. But we know that mobility, it's not only maybe people in Warsaw, but people in Turku also love their cars quite a lot. So then we have to find a ways how we take people, the citizens, actually together already planning how to transfer the system, the mobility system for the future. And that's what we have been doing also, taking the citizens to planning and be involved already in the planning phase, not only hearing the decisions from the city leaders, but participate into the actually planning. That's very important, I think. And then this 1.5 degree lifestyle You mentioned that you found that from the internet. I'm very happy about it. We launched the 1.5 degree campaign where we are trying to tell and lead and guide people how, what they can do in their everyday life to choose better. Not maybe trying to teach or tell that you have to be a perfect person, but maybe to realize that with small changes in your everyday life, you can actually create a lot, and then we can give example what to do and how to do, and what the cities can do is make that choice most easy one. So if you have daycare and the possibilities, the services nearby your house, you don't need your car actually. Then when you are talking about, we heard earlier in the morning about those 15-minute service-based areas within the city. So these kind of decisions can help people actually make the right choices as well. And I think that's also very important. And yeah, in the end of the day, I think it's maybe the cost of doing nothing is much more in just action than trying to act and do the right things, and that's what we are trying to do.
The cost of inactivity, of inaction, much higher in the long run, certainly than actually making the investment now in the short term and doing the right thing as far as battling climate change is. Mayor Jung, also, let me get your final remarks. This is Eurocities. This is about shared experiences. This is about best practices. This is about learning from one another. Certainly something that you do when interacting with your colleagues. What are some of the initiatives that you have kicked off that you would just like to bestow upon your colleagues out there, perhaps as a best practice tool?
Well, I have a great vision to be autonomous with our energy system in our city.
Independent.
Independent from fossil energy, to be on the way to decarbonization. So we try to do the first steps to change from, you see, it's a great brown coal tradition in our region. And the last 10 years, we have 65% of the whole energy of the warming of the houses in Leipzig was brown coal based. So we have to change this and make the first step to build a new what's the name, Kraftwerk, energy factory. Energy factory for in the first step to use gas, and the second step that's totally new, it's H2, water based energy producing. For the next 10 years it's possible. That's the first thing, and I think at the end 2035 maybe we will be in the situation to be very independent with our energy warming of the houses in the whole city.
Ambitious plan for the next 15 years, for certain, laid out here. Rounding up, let me go to Warsaw one more time, Mayor. You've already talked about the plans that you have laid out, the ambitious vision that you are sharing with your citizens on a daily basis. How are your citizens reacting to them? Are they welcoming? Are they open to them? Do you experience resistance? What is the situation there on the ground?
Well, it depends on the issue, because, for example, when it comes to energy efficiency, it's very difficult to find an issue with that, and of course, people support that. But when it comes to mobility, this is a challenge, because, as I've said, quite a lot of people are so used to the cars that they are not even using public transportation. I'm trying to demonstrate it to them that, of course, there are some situations in which you use a car. I use a car myself when I have to be in 10 different places during the day. But sometimes I use public transportation when I need to be somewhere at a precise time. So at the end of the day, it is just a question of selling the right message. We all can be users of cars, but at the same time, public transportation, bikes, and we all like to walk in the city. That's why we're transforming the center of the city into a pedestrian zone where we want to limit access of cars only to what is necessary. Some people love it, some people hate it, but that's the job of a politician and of a local leader to convince, and that's what we're doing.
Persuasion certainly integral part of your job. Mayor Nardella, last final remarks to wrap up this session. It's wonderful to be back here, no? I mean, at the end of the day, so many of your colleagues, you're coming together, but the challenges are not getting smaller, that's for certain. But do you draw hope, do you draw energy from meetings like these, from talking to your colleagues? Do you learn new things?
Oh, yes, absolutely. I think these occasions are very important for our activities, and we can share different experiences like now in this panel. We can find energy working together as a big team, a strong team, and each of us could tell something about our experience, our community. For example, in Florence, we are working a lot on public transports, especially overground transport system. We, after having put 3 tramway lines into operation, we are carrying out the 4th and the 5th tram line and the extension to the southeast area. And when Rafael told us we must convince our citizens, I'm reflecting how we can convince our citizens with concrete examples. Of course, our example, I try to use public transport as well, but also giving to our citizens a concrete alternative. So if I can guarantee to my citizens an efficient public transport system, I'm sure that the number of people who want to use these tools, this kind of mobility, are increasing. And also we have to invest on soft mobility. For example, in Florence we are completing this cycling path system with 120 kilometers of cycling paths, which is big number for a city like Florence, which is not very big. We don't have a big surface. And also other kind of soft mobility, green mobility, for example, sharing mobility, electric bicycle mobility. We have many new systems that we can experiment to give an alternative of private car. And I agree with Rafael when he told us the guy like us, 45, 15 years, they still consider car as a status symbol. But do our young people consider now car as a status symbol? In my city, no. Young people want to use other more sustainable systems, and public transport is another big challenge with our young citizens, that because they are aware about the crucial moment that we are living. And finally, we have also another system to push our citizens. So you can use, you can use soft power, but also hard power. Which is not...
it could be misunderstood. Okay. Yeah.
No, hard power is not violence.
Yes.
Peace.
We don't want to spread any rumors about Florence.
So we are projecting a green shield, is a large low-emission zone which aims to regulate, thanks to 81 gates, the access of the most polluting vehicles into the city. So at certain point, we mayors have to bring a decision. And we have to tell to our citizens, you can't use your car because the pollution coming from your car is too high. So giving alternative and use sometime
tough love
and tough
love. Let's call it tough love.
Thank you.
At the end of the day, I think
peace.
Yeah,
only for peace.
Only in peaceful manners, of course. I think it's properly understood. It's become very apparent throughout this discussion. The urgency is very much understood. Certainly understood in this room. Certainly understood in Florence, Leipzig, Turku, and Warsaw, and beyond. And we thank, of course, the Executive Vice President of the European Commission for kicking off this this session. I thank you for your remarks, for your leadership, and for certainly showing the way and making us all understand that something must be done, and that time, speaking of very ambitious climate targets, cannot be wasted under any means. So with that, Minna Arve, Rafael Chavkovsky, Dario Nardella, and Burkhard Jung, thank you so much for your input. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Now, since time is of the essence, we're going to continue right on here on this panel with our next debate. As a matter of fact, it's a seamless transition. By the way, Turku and Tampere, still friends, right? Okay. I just wanted to reassure. Climate change, of course, has been talked about. Now we take a next step further, ladies and gentlemen. Rounding up this panel with us, please welcome the mayor of Lyon, Gregory Doucet, is with us. Join me here on stage. Also with us is the mayor of the German city of Mannheim, Peter Kurz. Hello. We have with us the deputy mayor of Copenhagen, Ninna Hedeager Olsen. And last but not least, very pleased to welcome a Stockholm-based climate activist who's a Fridays for Future organizer. Janine O'Keefe is here with us. It's great to have you with us, Janine, rounding up this next debate on climate ambitious cities. I think in the previous session we clearly heard that EU actions matters to cities, and the success of the European Green Deal, I think that much has come out, depends on your ability, on the city's abilities to implement them. There are actually results, let me share them with you, from a recent Eurocities survey that show that a majority of cities have revised their climate targets upward for 2030 and 2050. Now we will look at what climate actions are being taken in various cities, Lyon, Mannheim, Copenhagen. Of course, let me turn to you, Mayor Doucet, first. Lovely to have you with us. Thank you for joining Eurocities. Revised climate targets upwards for 2030, 2050. Clearly, we heard from in the previous session, the thinking is changing. The urgency is being felt. Lyon is no exception.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there you go.
Better like this. Thank you, Ali. If you allow me just to say one word before, just to share with all of you how happy I am today to be with you guys. I think it's to see that all mayors, all deputy mayors, all local representatives are here committed with the same ambition, with the same objective, is actually very inspiring. You know, I have been personally engaged into environmental issues for a couple of years, and sometimes we had the impression to be alone, being engaged, being mobilized, and to see now that we are all of us dedicating most of our time to actually implement a fair and effective transition, because we are dedicated to improving lives of our citizens, is really, really inspiring. So I like just for that to thank you all for just being here and show how committed we are. This is very important. And I think this was also very important to show to Frans Timmermans earlier that we are here, we are all together, and we want to move on. So thank you all. And earlier we were talking about energy, huh? Burkhard, you talk about energy. I feel personally fueled by another, not the fossil one, don't worry, but by a new type of energy, the one that we are basically sharing all of us right now. And to answer your question, Ali, of course, Lyon has also increased its objectives in terms of emission, and well, basically we have last year, in last March 2020, we have declared the climate emergency to try to initiate a movement to the inhabitants, to share the messages. This is the perspective in which we see the city tomorrow. We have to consider that we are in a climate emergency.
We are indeed. I think that is properly understood and shared. Deputy Mayor Olsen, let me turn to you. Copenhagen is often known as a town, sustainable city, a lot of people on bicycles, obviously. You are definitely a global frontrunner and role model in that regard. So no one had to teach you, no one had to tell Copenhagen that climate change is here and that a sustainable way of life is desirable. But aside from the stellar reputation that your city has had for a long time now on the climate record, what is some of the advice and wisdom that you can share with us here today? You had it right the first way. There you go.
Perfect. Thank you very much for also inviting Copenhagen here. I think, as you said, we are always in the world or in Europe often known as really far on the climate agenda, but still Copenhagen also still have a lot of problems. And actually I think that what is not so known is that car ownership are rising in Copenhagen. More and more Copenhageners own a car. So we also need help and need cooperation with all other European cities.
Is that pandemic related?
No, also before. I think it's because cars are getting cheaper. Some of the taxes were removed from the former government, and if it's cheap to own a car, then people buy a car. So even in Copenhagen, even though we are known for our really broad bike lanes and that we try to make it the easy and good choice to go by bike in the city center, still a lot of Copenhageners buy a car. So we also need help and need to stick together with other European cities to find the ways to really realize that this is an emergency, as you said, and we can't wait. So of course. There's a lot of Copenhageners that bike, and there's a lot of Copenhageners that think that that is the normal way to transport, and it is socially accepted in Copenhagen to everybody does it. The royal family, the directors of big companies, and everybody is going by bike. But also, there's a lot of people who buy a car if it's cheap and easy. So so I think we still need all of you, and I think it takes really courageous politicians to make these decisions. Also, the decisions that hurt, that make it more expensive, make it more difficult to choose to go by car, and we still need also inspiration from other European cities for that. I remember earlier today, Pascal Schmidt, I think you're still here. You're right there. I met you some years ago in Rio for the Eurocities, and I remember that I think Brussels is not so known for being a bike city, but you already 3 years ago started removing parking spaces from public spaces, and it took a really courageous decision there, and I think we need to inspire each other to make these courageous decisions.
Yeah, interesting to hear that car ownership has gone up actually in Copenhagen. This is political leadership at the end of the day. You make the decisions, you incentivize car ownership, and then it goes up, of course. Mayor Kurz, cities drive the transformation to a greener economy, something that we've heard over and over here this morning. How is Mannheim? What's the situation in Mannheim? How is Mannheim leading the way? How is Mannheim driving that transformation?
I think we heard good example of humble government, and so I want to be on the same track and bit showing our way to ambition, I would tell it. It's, so we committed now to the race to zero, but let's say a few words. We heard about Mannheim. We heard a lot of things about really admired and desired cities. Of course, we're also an open and very diverse city and very attractive, but we are also a city with the highest rate of value creation depending on industry. No city in Germany of the same size or bigger has a higher rate. So our starting point is quite difficult. Carl Benz invented the car in Mannheim. And we now learned during the last 10 years that even you don't see it at first sight, our city is perfectly designed for cars in the end. So even our efforts, which were, I think, powerful in terms of fostering bike rides, we see that we need much more push factors than pull factors in the future. We started 3 years ago with a process, or nearly 4 years ago, with a process of defining a Mission 2030 based on the Sustainable Development Goals. And we had 7 city targets. And when the European Green Deal came up, we had the E-Clay Conference of Europe in our city. And the idea came up of local Green Deals. And we all appreciated the European Green Deal as a broader perspective than only focusing on reducing carbon. So, for example, without a circular economy, it's not possible to meet the goals. And biodiversity is as important as carbon reduction. So to have a broader approach and to use this to boost and accelerate our concrete measures to become sustainable. And so this was now the next step. We set up a secretariat for a local Green Deal, and referring to the discussion we just had, I think it's a proof of concept to have a local Green Deal, and we should use that as a proof of concept, because the cities are where the rubber hits the road. We heard that a lot. So we have to have a kind of a counter flow mechanism to show what do we really need to make change happen on the ground, and how what can the other levels of government do for us.
But absolutely, but I hear quite loud and clear. Mannheim has a bit of an uphill task, quite some challenges, but you are on the right path. I hear that loud and clear. I'm going to come to you in just a second, but let me turn to Janine here, because Fridays for Future, of course, by now a global brand, is known to well, you know, keep politicians, hold them to task, you know, and you know, at the end of the day, the responsibility that politicians hold and the decisions they make, they're being evaluated, they're being judged, and they're being criticized if they need to. You've been here from, you've listened to many of the mayors, deputy mayors, many of the city leaders. Are you content with what you've been hearing?
Certainly not. Okay. So 2050 is really the basis for the blah, blah, blah. Okay. So 2050 is many elections off. Okay. What does it really mean as a politician? And why are we giving our children's future and our grandchildren's future as little carbon as possible rather than as much carbon as possible? Are we giving them a planet that we were born into? Are we taking that responsibility? Are we stepping up to the challenge? I think cities are wonderful, and if you look at the thousands of cities which strike with Fridays for Future weekly, as well as the big strikes, it's absolutely amazing. So you have a resource. The map shows you that resource, and you can find those people doing that work. Mobilize them, mobilize your cities. This is not just an emergency, it is urgent. Johan Rockström, who is a Swedish climate scientist and works with the Potsdam Institute, head of the Potsdam Institute, said, and I hate to quote this because I actually don't enjoy understanding this, is our climate and our ecological systems are a threat. They are both in crisis, and they are threatening all of humanity. The climate is on a negative spiral, and it is threatening our planet and all life on Earth. I don't want to be the person who helped that, especially not politically. We're supposed to be intelligent. I really wonder whether we are. Maybe we're intelligent as individuals, but not as a group. We're soaring off the branch we're sitting on, and we're sitting on the wrong side of the branch. Many people use the term, it's too late, or it's gone too far, many of those terms. For me, and this is only really a personal way of understanding it, is climate is like quicksand. You slowly get further and further in. It is not an on-off switch where you can go back, the light went out, I have to go back. You get deeper and deeper. And as things get worse, we will find that it's harder and harder to dig ourselves out. So it's hard to feel the urgency in quicksand because it slowly melts around you. But it's there. And for a top scientist to say we are threatening the entire planet publicly on Swedish television is a shock for me. And even for the UN to talk about code red for humanity, it's an absolute and utter shock. I think none of us want to be remembered as being the group that didn't do enough. I even wonder if it's possible to do enough. But I do believe COVID showed us a way forward. It showed us that we can work together. It showed us that we can find new ways. It showed us that we can regulate. It's not a nice thing to do, and we need to do it with justice. We talked about the social side. So climate justice is doing it for climate and ecology, and justice is making sure those people have jobs afterward. So it's matching of that, and that's very, very true for the mayors and the cities, because that's where the rubber hits the road.
Well, let's give the mayors a chance to respond, please. Mayor Doucet, Janine in essence is saying, look, it's too little, too little, too late, too little, too slow. What is being offered here, despite the goodwill, despite the leadership that you're all exerting. How would you respond to Janine?
First of all, I'd like to thank you, Janine, for the words that you shared with us, and on which I fully agree. Now we have to transform this this vision and this fear into actual action. This is the reason why I decided myself to be engaged into politics. And how do we do it concretely in Lyon? Let me just give you a few examples. Earlier, Ali, you were pinpointing the fact that we need to actually combine the ecological transition with social justice. This is exactly the objective that we define for our action plan. We pursue two goals. The necessary ecological transition for sure, and that's why I was referring earlier to the climate emergency declaration that we passed a year ago, because it gives the framework, it gives the perspective in which we go into action. But so, the transition is one objective. The second is, of course, to ensure social justice, because there will be no transition without social justice. So how do we translate this into actual and concrete action? Recently, we have designed and voted what we call, sorry for the French word, notre SPAZER, which is the framework of for our public purchases. And in this framework, we have defined specifications that combines environmental considerations and social inclusion. So, and this SPAZER, together with our investment plan, which is for the city of Lyon very ambitious, and because we have decided to invest more than €1 billion in the next 5 years to renovate buildings, to build schools, to plant trees, etc. And we have presented our public purchase framework and our investment plan to local actors, because we want to boost, we want to give more opportunities to local actors to respond to our need for investments. Why do we want to promote local actors? It's not because we don't like external ones. It's just because we know that doing things this way, we will actually lessen, we will reduce our emissions. That's it. And so this is already a step into the transition. So engaging a dialogue with companies, with local associations, with basically local stakeholders is just a way. It's just an example. There will be, I can give you, of course, other examples, but it's just a way to step in the actual transition. Let me give you another example, which is significant for me. We have created and promoted local labels. One for me, it's very interesting. It is called Lyon Ville Équitable et Durable, which could be translated as Lyon Fair and Sustainable Cities. It's a label that we give to companies, local craft talents, which are engaged into respecting specifications such as social inclusion also and environmental considerations. So this, by giving these labels, we send a sign to citizens, to Lyon inhabitants. We show where they can actually consume by respecting social justice and environmental consideration. And so, once again, this is just one step ahead again, but little by little, we are stepping into the transition.
Yeah, thank you for sharing those examples. Deputy Mayor Olsen, basically when Janine was speaking, I saw you nodding quite a bit. She's saying, look, at the end of the day, you might be revising your climate targets upwards for 2050, but 2050 is a very, very long time from now. It's not going to be enough, says Janine. You seem to be in agreement, but at the end of the day, you're also in politics, and there are certain rules, and there are elections, and you have to get elected, and there's a platform, and so on and so forth. You know, I mean, I think, microphones are more tricky than climate change today. I can tell you this is.
Okay, now it's on. I think Yeah, I'm really happy that you're here in the panel, that it's not just like a politician agreeing with each other, as many panels often are. And I think it's like, having an activist in this panel is really important, because that also shows how important activists are in pushing politicians to be more brave, to take these decisions, more brave decisions, not only the popular decisions. And that was kind of also, what was my point in the first, the first time I had the word, is that we need the people. We need the people to push us to take also the difficult decisions, also to not only make it really nice and easy to go by bike or choose the green way of living, but also make it harder, more expensive, and difficult to choose the ways of living that destroys the earth. And I think, for politicians like us to be more brave to take these decisions, we need Fridays for Future and all these climate activist organizations, because you show that the people actually are ready, that we make these changes. So and that will help us be pushed to maybe do it faster. So I think what you're doing is so important in that way.
Does the change perhaps, this is a provocative question, of course, being asked to ask you in this room, does the change have to come from outside? I mean, we do hear from mayors, we heard from mayors who are doing great things, who are trying to do the right things, but does the impetus, does it sometimes have to come from external forces, such as Fridays for Future, for instance?
I come from an activist party, from a socialist party, so that's a lot of what my what I was doing before I became a deputy mayor was being an activist and demonstrating outside the city hall to tell the politicians what they should do. And I think that activists have a really important role in pushing mayors and other politicians to be brave and take the decisions that are not easy.
Mayor Kurz, would you please? Mayor Kurz, would you accept, would you embrace the criticism directed by Janine towards the political elite, if you will, the decision makers, that this is by all accounts, this is
yes.
too slow? Yeah.
Yes, of course. We wasted time since 1995. It's 26 years now, so it's a COP26. So this is proof of the fact that we weren't fast enough. This is pretty clear. And of course, that's why I spoke about raising ambitions. We now decided that we want to apply in our city council, that we want to apply to become one of the 100 climate neutral and smart cities by 2030. This is, I told something about where we come from, so maybe it's only partial part of the city, but it will and it should include industry too. And so what we started now is really taking stock of what is being done so far, and not only by city administration, but also of the private sector. So to have what Gregory said, a real dialogue, and this is new. I must admit, really to talk to the industry and with the industry, what could be next steps. And then what I meant with the proof of concept, then it's really interesting and kind of research to see, could it happen to turn even a part of the city with industry in it to climate neutrality by 2030, and what would it need? And do the programs of the other levels really fit, and do we have to adjust the programs? And this is the real multi-level government we miss. We speak all the time about cities are decisive, and then as a level of implementation. That's not enough. We have really to have a dialogue and learn from each other, and we have to do it quickly. Of course, this is one aspect, but let me answer also the question of pushing from the outside. It's, of course, helpful, and it's necessary, obviously, but we were speaking also about keeping the cohesion of society. And I think that the language of guilt or even sin is fair regarding politics. But it's problematic if many people feel that their lifestyle is really attacked and that they are pushed away from the wealthier and more educated people in a way that they know how to live and they don't. And this is extremely dangerous. And I don't know how to come out because we are already in this trap. And Pascal Smet mentioned better living. I mean, this has to be our message. It's about better living. It's not that a certain lifestyle is wrong and that people are personally responsible. So it's difficult really to address too much the personal level if we want to reach really political support for the change we need.
Janine, let me direct that towards you directly. I mean, Mayor Kurz is saying, yes, the message is the right one, but how it is being conveyed, how it is being relayed is important. Otherwise, you are at risk of marginalizing, of excluding, of verbally punishing certain people who will then emotionally feel detached and have no stake at it. What's your response?
And I would actually agree with that fully, because the more we push individual responsibility, no cars, no plastic, no meat, it's the traditional three, the more we push that, the less likely a person will be an activist. The more guilt they feel, the less likely that they will speak truth to power, that they would tell you the truth, because I'll think, I have to clean up my own house before I tell you what I think. And that is actually dangerous for activism. So I fully agree with you. So we need to say that it's the institutions and the processes and the systems which is pushing them into using cars, using meat, using plastic. And that's why I talk about the quicksand. For example, COVID is related to biodiversity. Yet how much plastic did we push ourselves into via COVID? And we need to think in these terms. And the cities have a chance, a big chance. They have the ability to push new ideas, innovative, small, even private or public, invested, to actually spark changes. And look at Leipzig, 1989, the revolution started here, right? And it's not very far away to find Martin Luther's revolution, wasn't it 1531, I think? This is where you, even as a politician, or I would even say Johan Bach was potentially a change maker, right? These people, and you are the powerful, have an opportunity to find and ignite and mobilize the people around you and utilize that and make their voice heard. You can create the change, you can pave the way. Every city here, I'm pretty sure I can find you a Greta, right? So you can find that person. You can bring them forward. You can make them more powerful. And I don't want to be excluding industry. I think they're very important. But sometimes polluters out needs to be very carefully managed, because it's very hard to glide the transition if you can't really see the creative opportunities that you really have.
And before I bring in the views of Copenhagen and Lyon, let's be concrete then. Let's be concrete. You have a captive audience here. They are listening very attentively to what you're saying. What needs to be done? Let's be concrete then. What do you expect from them? What are the steps that they need to take now, not in 2050 or 2030? What is it?
Well, if I had an open book and every local community has their own role to find their own way, but the open book to me is declare climate emergency, explain internally and understand why you declared it. So you need to have your bureaucrats on board and then explain that to your community. And bring the community in via, for example, participatory budgeting or citizens' assembly to create the laws which you can then, because it will be divisive in the community, but if you do citizens' assembly, for example, you can even convert the deniers onto the side of the change. Because the truth is, when people deliberate, when they talk together, when they discuss, just like you are today, they feel included. They become attached to the change, and they feel the power that you're sharing with them and they're sharing together becomes a part of the mobilization, which is really thorough.
Deputy Mayor, jump right in here.
First of all, I think what you're saying, I also totally agree, and I think it's really important that we never individualize the responsibility for this transition. And that's I think what we need the activists for is pushing the politicians to make these brave decisions, to make the green choice the cheap and easy and good choice, and it has to be at the same time you, for example, make it more difficult and expensive to use your car. Then of course it's really, really important that you also make it an easy alternative for everybody to go by public transportation or by bike or other ways, so there's no one that feel left out, and they see themselves okay, so I'm bad if I drive a car, but I don't have any alternative. So it's really, really important that you also create the alternative and make that alternative cheap and easy to use. And the same when you stop having black industry jobs, a lot of unskilled workers will be in these jobs, and we have to create new green unskilled jobs, so we don't leave a big part of the population out of the society. So I think that's really, really important that when we as politicians have to make these brave decisions, that it has to be decisions for all the population and not only for the skilled and well-educated part of the population.
Mayor Doucet, when you head back to Lyon, first thing you do is declare an emergency.
I did it already.
There you go. Even ahead.
Well, what Janine said earlier, let's say, for me, is very much connected to what our friend, the mayor of Warsaw, said. I mean, there we have two issues. We have awareness and we have affordability. When it comes to awareness, I agree with you. We have to explain why it's an emergency and why we have we all need to be engaged into this transition. But we also, and I totally assume to be a change maker. Actually, this is actually why I am here. But we also have to work on affordability. And as you said, Ninna, it's very important to provide alternative. Let me give you a few examples as far as mobility is concerned, because it's a key issue in our big cities. In Lyon, we are investing to create 25 more kilometers of tram lines to connect, let's say, the low income or the disadvantaged areas, including surrounding cities of Lyon, to the center of the city. And in addition, we have established a social pricing system that that permit to 130,000 people to have access not to pay actually public transportation. And 70,000 people have access to a significant discount on the price of public transportation, so that public transportation becomes more accessible, and it's very important. Another example is the development of our bicycle lanes network. Even if I know that being seat aside of someone coming from Copenhagen, I should probably not talk about bicycle lanes. But anyway, we are engaged into the development of 350 kilometers of bicycle lanes over the mandate. And we recently started to distribute 10,000 bicycles to scholarship students, so that they will have the opportunity to use, of course, our bicycle lanes, but they will also take the habit to actually use them. And this is very important. So by, once again, being very practical, because I think we will convince people to be engaged, and if we will actually we will go further in terms of awareness if our actual implementation, our actual action are very significant in the life of the people. And for me, this is one of the key principles of our action in Lyon.
We're already nearing the end of this very fascinating discussion. Mayor Kurz, let me get your final remarks here about how you see it unfolding. Can we speed up things? Which is, in essence, what Janine, what Fridays for Future is saying, is we don't doubt your intentions, we don't doubt your good intentions, we just think that the pace that you're on is not fast enough. Realistically speaking, do you see a way?
We speeded up already during the last 2 to 3 years, and I think there is really a change in minds happening, and so I'm pretty optimistic that there is a chance of having really other results than in the last 10 years, and that we also. Because it's a movement, so we are also influenced. I see it personally. Since 2 years, I'm riding bike on a daily basis and using in the city, and I see it works very well, and maybe it's also then a role model. So now we are 3 out of 6 in our the vice mayors and the mayor riding bike. It's only, of course, a small symbol, but it's a symbol of change and of speeding up. So I'm optimistic that we can make it.
Optimism. The International Transport Forum by the OECD actually takes place, incidentally, every year here in Leipzig. And that is, of course, the mobility is a huge issue, and how mobility can transition into something that you would also get behind, Janine. Pascal Schmidt said in the first panel, if I can quote this correctly, in order for change to happen, you need media, money, and momentum. I think if I got that right. Is any of those elements missing here for change, for real change to happen? Or what is missing? Let's put it this way. Perhaps it's easier.
I would say you have to have the media, money, and momentum without actually listening to the facts, right? The climate science is telling us facts. You see in the ecological system, you go into a forest, you pick up a stone, and there's hardly any bugs there anymore. Or if you're in a transport and they have the windscreen wipers, you don't have any more bugs. We've got to listen to the facts. Even if we've got the money, the media, and the momentum, we can go the wrong direction. If we're not listening deeply to science, and even local science, and looking at the best available options, because many of even the social sciences now with donut economics and looking at well-being and the SDGs, that social science is very, very useful. And it doesn't mean the competition needs to go out the window, but competition can't control the democracy, if that makes any sense. Democracy needs to represent the people and ensure that they have the power, even in the local level. So some of you would actually be suffering from an inability to act because your national group has already taken too much power. And so that is a really important rebellion to discuss on a city level, right? So you have both the role as an activist towards your nation or national level, and as a leader, a very important leadership role, which is fairly close to the grassroots. So I think you have to listen to the science and understand that.
If there's one thing that, before we round it up here, did you want to jump in here quickly?
I just want to reassure Janine that we are actually listening to scientists. But as you said, and that's why this kind of gathering is very important. I mean, if we want to act, each of us in our city as an isolated island trying to oppose to global warming or biodiversity collapse, only in our backyard, of course, we will probably fail. The importance of such a gathering is that, as I said earlier, I mean, we feel the energy, we feel that we are not alone. And rather than having this sense of being isolated on my island, I prefer to, by being here, to start building an archipelago of let's say, politician activists, whatever you call us, but of people really engaged and dedicated to actually transform the day-to-day lives of our inhabitants. This is basically, we are here just for the well-being of people. I don't have any other goals to pursue. But by creating connection among us, and that's why also I'm really pleased to have you here on this panel, Janine, because you are also here to remind us that we are not only elected people. We need to listen to scientists, but we need also to listen people that to a certain extent you represent today. And so let's build this archipelago all together, sharing practices, sharing energy to actually realize that we can be a force together, as Dario expressed earlier, for instance, to send messages to the European Commission and tell them, okay guys, don't do anything for us without us, because we need to be actually involved in decision that you are about to take. And of course, we are also engaged in our country into, let's say, we are also engaged to promote our work at the national level. I'm regularly fighting against my government and to shake their brains and to tell them, hey guys, you have to hurry, because this is climate emergency. This is not about the next election, Paul. This is not about that. This is about actually ensuring that the living condition of the humanity is tomorrow will still be there. And I totally share what you expressed earlier, Janine. I mean, there is not a single day when I see my 6-month-old daughter when I do not think about the future I'm actually trying to preserve or to prepare for her. So, and basically, once again, let's build this archipelago, this network of mayors, strongly dedicated to this transition.
Well, I think these perfect words here, indeed. Ninna, to wrap up some final remarks, you said you came from activism, you went into politics. Does something get lost in between? On the way there, or once you're there?
I think, of course, it's always different when you are inside the city hall and you have to make compromises with other parties, and that's very different from being an activist. But I think what you just said is like really important, that the people in the city halls, in the cities, they are closer to the people, they are closer to the fundament, and that's why I think we see that what we talked about before, like countries talk and cities act, and we see that cities are making much more ambitious goals than countries are doing. And I think that's like we really need the cities to just move forward and not wait for the countries, because the parliaments often take a long time to make really slow decisions, and cities, all the city councillors, I always think, see really often take more courageous decisions right now, and we need that. We need to act now. We can't wait for the countries.
Janine, I'll give you the final word here before we break for lunch. Very content-rich, very interesting, very emotional debate in many ways that we've been having here. If there's only one thing that you want all these political leaders, mayors, to take away from this discussion, what would it be?
Germany did a great job recently with 20A, and they proved that it's constitutionally wrong to not take care of the next generation. Every city here has that. You can rebel. You are within the law to not do what your national government wants, effectively. It's difficult, but it might be life-saving for many. Both in your cities, there will be people and areas who are affected more by climate change and ecology, most affected people and areas, as well as what we see outside of Europe, what we see in Africa, what we see in Australia, what we see in the Amazon and South America. That has been happening for decades. And now we're finally getting the signal. So even Stockholm, Sweden, has the constitution on their side. So every city, probably in every country here, can find the law on their side to break free and do more. Do as much as possible. And if you need support, I really think a mayor in another city will cheer you along. So thank you for your work.
I think I speak for all when I say this has been an extremely enriching debate here, very honest, very transparent. I mean, this is what it's about. That's what Eurocities is about, to come together, to praise us for the good work, to criticize where it's needed. But I think it's abundantly clear that the urgency is understood. Perhaps there's disagreements about the implementation of PACE, but listening to the climate-ambitious cities of Lyon, Mannheim, Copenhagen, and many others that have graced the stage and who are joining us off stage here, certainly this is an issue that will be with us for a very long time. Janine O'Keefe, Ninna Hedeager Olsen, Gregory Doucet, and Peter Kurz, this is your applause. Thank you so much. My pleasure.